greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse. And it's a new year. It's a new season of Robservations. Your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, and of course, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema. Your archbishop of banterbury, your chancellor of cheerfulness, your pharaoh of physical media, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett. And I am Rob casting at you, you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. It is a new year, January 2nd. I took yesterday off. I caught up on some movies I hadn't seen, and it was delightful. For those of you who joined us for a New Year's Eve stream, I apologize for, I got rather inebriated, to be honest. I don't apologize for that, but I apologize if I said anything untoward. Hope I didn't. What a great stream. It's always nice to see a lot of you, especially from all over the world. It's nice to be a part of the community that we have built. I love seeing people come together. You know, I think I'm going to do more of those things, like maybe have like a topic of discussion and do more of those Zoom parties, specifically things that originate from you. Also, we're going to start member chats as well for the channel, a weekly member chat, and I'm going to have those discussion topics be picked by you, and we'll probably do those once a week as well. So it'll be fun. I have to say I am very much an optimist, even though, sure, a lot of things are still haven't changed much. I am very optimistic about this year. I'm looking very forward to it. And gosh, I get to start this year. As many of you know, the feature film I produced, Tango Shalom, is going to be screening at a lot of Jewish film festivals in the next couple months. So if you are interested in seeing it, they'll be mostly virtual, but I can't really say where it's going to be playing. But the first place Tango Shalom is playing, actually, I guess its world premieres in Jaipur, India, the second week of this month. I'm not sure on which day it screens. I guess it would be the third week, sometime between the 15th and the 20th. So if you live in India, if you live in Jaipur, India, or in and around that area, Tango Shalom, the movie that I produced, edited, I was the post-production supervisor and the visual effects supervisor on, will be screening for the very first time publicly in India, which I have to say, I'm pretty excited about it. It's amazing when something that you've worked on will go to the other side of the planet, and there's people I wouldn't normally have any kind of contact with who are going to get to see my work. So that's exciting. All of our work, actually. The labor of love that is Tango Shalom. As I said, it's not a movie that I think a lot of imagination connoisseurs are going to be seeking out. My grandmother would have loved it, but it's really exciting that it is going to be playing in India. So that's kind of neat. Very excited about that. Anyway, gosh, it's a new year. Who knows what's going to happen? Obviously, Los Angeles, California, we're not doing very well here as far as COVID goes, so I don't see our movie theaters opening anytime soon, but thank God for streaming services. And I'll tell you, it's been a really interesting year. I've seen a lot of great programming. We've obviously, the end of last year, the end of 2019, we got Disney Plus, of course, then Apple Plus, and there's been some really great shows. I mean, I finally caught up with For All Mankind, Ron Moore's alternate history show about the U.S. space program, which at first I was dubious about. I didn't really get it until I watched it, but a show that just kept getting better and better and better, and became a big fan of that. Of course, Amazon has The Expanse, so there's a lot of great science fiction being made, fantasy. Walter Tevis, who wrote the novel The Queen's Gambit, he also had written The Man Who Fell to Earth, that was David Bowie film was based on that, obviously Nicholas Roeg directing David Bowie, and he also wrote an incredible science fiction novel that I don't understand why it hasn't ever been translated. It'll probably get made now, called Mockingbird from 1980. I've talked about that on the show before, but it was great to see The Queen's Gambit, and I hope Walter Tevis is going to have a lot more eyeballs on his work. He famously, of course, wrote The Hustler and The Color of Money, which both starred Paul Newman as Fast Eddie Felson. So great to see Walter Tevis's work getting recognized in this way. But we've had a lot of great stuff has been coming out. But the future of streaming is obviously, it's been very disruptive in the entertainment business, and streamers are now really taking over before it was the studios. I feel like the really interesting thing about the motion picture business is that streaming and the streaming companies are where it's at now. I don't hear a lot of people talk about, well, I'm going to go make a movie at Warner Brothers. Now it's like, well, I want to make a movie for Apple or Netflix or Amazon. It's very interesting, and that's come about very quickly. And there's an article in Deadline that I wanted to share with you. It came out today. It was published today, kind of an expose on streaming. And I thought it was a really interesting article. Streaming boom reaches 2021 crossroads. Can big media really catch Netflix? And I think that obviously Netflix has become the streaming service to beat, but that's only because they've been around for a long period of time. And from where I'm sitting, it hasn't changed much. Everyone's talking about the streaming wars, who's going to win the streaming wars. We saw, of course, my beloved, or maybe not so beloved, I love to hate on it, Quibi. We saw Quibi come and go. Now, Quibi was a streaming service that I was making fun of even before it went live, and I continued to make fun of all the way up until its demise. Now, that wasn't because I had any problem with Quibi or that I tried to make a show for Quibi that denied me. The reason I thought that Quibi was a bad idea was I think that the entire idea of giving people A-list short-form programming that they can watch in bursts or drips and drabs while they're on the go was a very flawed idea. And my own experience on YouTube has been, people, when I first started in the business, and it is a business, YouTube back in 2015, the conventional wisdom was that, people want just short-form programming. And it was apparent to me, being on Collider Heroes and seeing other people, like the rise of the intellectual dark web, these long shows like Joe Rogan or whether Dave Rubin or people that were engaging in these long-form conversations, which is something that no one else could offer. Certainly the networks weren't going to offer that. If Joe Rogan wanted to sit down with somebody and talk to them for 3 hours, he would. There was no time limit on anything, and I sort of got caught up in all of that. And obviously this show is not a short form show. The shows I was doing, even with John Campea, I mean, we have he's got a format and a time limit, but he can go for as long as he wants to. So it was apparent to me that also when you watch something, when you're a big fan of something, you don't want to watch it in drips and drabs or short bursts. You want to sit down, you want to settle in, and you want to focus your attention on whatever it is that you want to focus your attention on. This idea that we're going to make movies that are meant to be consumed on the go, I think was a mistake. I think from the very beginning, if somebody wants to spend time watching great programming or watching something they're really interested in, if you're doing it while you're commuting, I mean, maybe if you have a long train commute or something, but even when you're doing that, you're still looking around. You're distracted in some way, shape, or form. I'm waiting for my stop. Who's going to sit next to me? What's going on? So you never could really focus, which is why I thought Quibi was a bad idea to begin with, and apparently a lot of other people did too. And it made me realize one thing. There is one thing that is the most important thing that streaming services can provide, and it is the only thing that streaming services can provide, and that is good content that people want to watch. Period. That's it. You can take your functionality, all of that stuff falls by the wayside. Nobody has brand loyalty to a streaming service. Nobody is going to say, well, if I want to watch The Boys on Amazon, I'm not going to watch Netflix. No one's doing that. People go to wherever they're going to go to find the programming that they want to watch. Period. That's it. And in order to get eyeballs on your streaming service, you make good shows. There's been a lot that's been made of Disney and what they've done with Disney Plus. And I'll tell you, yes, people have said, well, Rob, Disney has the Marvel catalog, the Star Wars catalog, and that's true. They have a lot of subscribers, especially families, that it's a one-stop shop. Even if you want to watch National Geographic documentaries, Disney Plus is a great place. But the people that are going to come and join Disney Plus, I still think are fairly limited by their programming. Now, The Mandalorian was a big crossover hit because people love Star Wars. But beyond that, and beyond the new movies like dropping Pixar's Soul or Mulan or things like that, that's a one-time or a couple-time-a-year event. How often are those going to happen? Whereas, like, say, Netflix is putting stuff up from, like, all over the world all the time. I mean, it's really crazy. And speaking of India, they've got programming from all over the world. So if you are looking for something, Netflix is giving you a smorgasbord. It's like a great buffet, even though you can't really go to buffets anymore. But if there were great buffets you could go to, like if you go down to the Hotel del Coronado, one of the best buffets I've ever eaten at is at the Hotel del Coronado, Hotel Del in San Diego. Now, there's a buffet. You go there for like Mother's Day. Well, that's what Netflix is. I mean, Netflix is just laying out all this programming. There's so much there from all over the world. I mean, and you never know. You never know. I get sucked in to watch like that former actress and her architect friend that just travel around the world and look at cool houses. You know, suddenly Elizabeth Nile gets sucked into something like that, and I'll binge 3 seasons of that, not knowing how into it I am. And then you're like, when it's over, oh man. So anyway, this article is about the streaming wars, and I thought I would share it with you before jumping into. I have a backlog of letters, and let's face it, you all like to hear from one another. I like to hear from you, so I've got a lot of letters to read. But I wanted to share this particular story. Streaming boom reaches 2021 crossroads. Can big media really catch Netflix? No, they can't. But anyway. After a landmark year when several new billion-dollar streaming services jockeyed for attention, there's a big question greeting the new class as 2021 begins. Where from here? Apple, Disney, NBC Universal, and Warner Media, the most prominent new players in the streaming game, have all made a solid go of it to varying degrees. Alas, poor Quibi, we hardly used you. Each now needs to evolve for the long haul. Regardless of how they respond to that challenge, it is clear that the great streaming eruption of 2020 will be remembered as merely the opening act of the drama. A decade ago, or even 5 years ago, media companies were dipping their toes in the water, but they were more focused on keeping their traditional businesses going. One senior-level media exec says, now it's no longer about toe dipping. These companies see that they have to act. Strategies for minimizing churn, i.e. hanging on to subscribers, vary. HBO Max will add advertising and launch internationally. Peacock must expand distribution and leverage the Olympics. Disney Plus will need to manage and market a flood of new originals. And Apple TV is placing big bets on movies. The main mission for all of them, though, is to be seen by viewers as essential. Now, here's an interesting chart that's really interesting to look at. They've broken these down: Apple, Disney, Peacock, and HBO Max. So the launch date for Apple TV was November 1st, 2019, right before Disney Plus. And the hits and misses that there go over, 30% of Greyhound viewers, that's Tom Hanks' World War II movie, 30% of Greyhound viewers weren't previously subscribers. So that's a big number for one program to bring in. Misses, they had a mixed bag launch slate and no library, meaning they didn't have a studio's backlog of titles to put on their platform the same way that Peacock and the same way that HBO Max did. And, of course, what they're looking forward to in 2021 is ambitious, big-budget film slate, which is true. Apple's going in all in on movies. And, again, movies that people obviously want to see with talent that they are going to want to watch as well. Putting Tom Hanks in a World War II movie, I thought was a pretty great idea. Disney Plus started November 12th, 2019. Hit huge subscriber growth, premium library, and they have a lean original slate. And that's something I think that is very important to remember. Disney has The Mandalorian, and so far that's been about it. They've had interesting shows, but they've got their library to fall back on. The Star Wars movies, the Marvel movies. They haven't done a lot in terms of new programming. They've got to do a lot more, I think, but that's okay because, look, they can sail off their library in the family market for a long time to come. Then, of course, we've got WandaVision coming in less than, 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, today. I'm really looking forward to that. And, of course, the Marvel shows are going to crush it there. And there's 10 more Star Wars shows coming. So if Disney Plus was even just the Marvel Star Wars network for a while, I think that They're gonna. I don't know how many more subscriptions they're gonna get, but they're gonna get a lot, and people are gonna keep coming back, and that's gonna be pretty great. The Peacock network that launched on April 15th, they've got a lot of live programming, and they have a free tier. They have a lack of marquee originals, which is true. You know, they don't have a lot of new programming, but that's going to have to change. Tokyo Olympics spotlight they've got coming, and they've got exclusive rights to The Office. The Office is now on Peacock. But again, that's just one show. Just one show. We'll see what happens. And then, of course, HBO Max. They debuted on May 27th. Roku deal firms up all distribution points and their misses. Brand access confusion, backlash from Warner Brothers' day and date move. They've got their international launch to look forward to, and the addition of cheaper ad-supported tier. Look, I think people are going to get having a cheaper ad-supported tier is always good, but man, after becoming immune or not watching ads on places like Netflix, watching ads again is really, really frustrating. But I would say that it all comes down to content. Do you have what people want to watch? It's as simple as that. It's not rocket science. You either have the content people want to watch or you don't. And I think that's where these streaming services are going to live and die. You know, I think with Apple Plus, I really hadn't watched, I didn't feel the need to get Apple Plus, but I felt like, why not? I really wanted to watch For All Mankind. Finally, I watched it, really liked it. I will be going back. The new season starts next month. Can't wait. But that's the only thing I've watched on Apple Plus. To be honest, I really haven't looked through it much. I wanted to check out the morning show, see how that was. HBO Max I love. I think it was ridiculous for them to call it HBO Max. I think that was creating brand confusion right off the bat. But hey, they'll bounce back. Their day and date. Look, I can't wait to see the little things. And if I get a big movie a month from HBO Max that was going to be in day and date release, I would love to have seen these things in the theater. But if I can't, hey, HBO Max is they've got me wrapped around their little finger. So perfectly willing to be a part of that. Very very exciting. And Peacock right now, I don't feel the need to get Peacock. So to me, it's Netflix, Amazon, Apple TV, Disney, and HBO Max. That's where I'm at right now. Peacock, you got some work to do to make me interested. And maybe if you'll do a whole series on the making of the Fast and the Furious franchise and go film by film, hey, I could even help you make that if you want. That would be something that would be fun for me. But right now, Peacock, don't know. So let me just read a little bit more of this article. Streaming is continuing to replace other forms of viewing. As pay TV subscriptions continue to wane in 2020, the number of households subscribing to multiple streaming services reached 61%, up from 48% in 2019, according to a Parks associate. Amper Analysis estimated the average number of subscription services per home at 3.8, even before the pandemic, up from 2.8 a year ago. Parks puts the total number of SVOD outlets at nearly 300, double the tally from 2014. All that streaming raises the bar for new services looking to stand out from the pack. To have a great chance at breaking out, you need to be a service that people gravitate toward and want to use regularly, Tom Ryan, president and CEO of streaming at Viacom CBS, tells Deadline. They're going to be they're rebranding CBS All Access, and they're going to start something new there. They're going to level up with it in 2021 with an ambitious rebrand of CBS All Access as Paramount Plus, because they've got the entire Paramount back catalog. Among the new crop, Disney Plus has been the only new service to clearly break out. It rocketed past its initial 5-year subscription projections in mere months, reaching 86.8 million by December 2nd. The company's shock and awe Investor Day in December promised more than 100 new original film and series titles, a major ramp-up. The company says Disney Plus will reach 230 million to 260 million subscribers by 2024, quadrupling its annual content spending to at least $8 billion by that time. They've talked about going up as high as $16 billion. Turning a profit will also start to happen by then, executives say. Not that it will necessarily matter to investors who have overlooked the worst fiscal year in 4 decades as COVID-19 ravaged theme parks, live sports, and theaters. Disney stock rose 24% in 2020 to an all-time high, almost entirely on its focus on streaming. Go Bob Iger. Maintaining a steady course while turning the engines to full throttle is a risky process, however, a reality that Disney appears to acknowledge. As we increase our output, the emphasis will always be on quality, not volume. And that's correct. That is the correct way to go about it. You know, you make great shows, you build it, people will come. And listen, I'm not going to read this whole article, but I thought it was an interesting way to start the year. I'm going to put this article in the live chat here. And where is it? There you go. Now it's in the live chat. So, yeah, I mean, it really, when it comes right down to it, people are going to gravitate toward the streaming services that have the programming they want to see, which means it's up to the streamers to figure out what that is and go after great programming. And I think for the most part, I'm really excited by what I see. You know, I watched George Clooney's The Midnight Sky based on a science fiction novel. It was I kind of knew what I was getting into when I saw it. I quite enjoyed it. Is it the greatest movie in the world? No, but I really enjoyed when I was watching it. And I'll tell you something. The real space, obviously some of it is set on a spaceship, was very scientifically accurate. There's a scientific accuracy to the film that you don't normally see in a lot of these kinds of movies, all the way down to the malleable hull of the ship. Very, very interesting. So from that perspective, I really enjoyed it. I like the performances. But it's a lot of people watch it, but it's not getting a lot of love out there, which kind of bums me out. But I haven't seen things like Mank yet, but I watched the Black Mirror, Charlie Brooker show Death to 2020, which a lot of people also dislike. I thought it was funny. I thought a lot of the dialogue was hilarious, and the thing that they said, I could listen to Lawrence Fishburne narrate anything. I guess after watching this, I'm like, well, we know who the heir apparent to Morgan Freeman is, because I love the dulcet tones of Lawrence Fishburne's voice during that. But again, it comes down to it's always going to be content is king. So I don't know what you guys think about when it comes to streaming, but for me, I was just thinking about how great. Look, we're getting some amazing stuff, and with the amount of money, the one thing that subscriptions do, I know Netflix is in the red, but I'm hoping that from a creative standpoint, I mean, I don't know how many years left I have to create content on this great planet of ours, but I'm hoping it's going to make it a little easier to get some things that I've wanted to see made. As many of you know, I participated in the making of an animated series, an adult animated series, an adult anime series that drops on Netflix in March. It had a 3-year commitment. I don't know how they're going to space it out so far, but we're already deep into the 3rd season, and I'm very excited for you to see it. Again, I played a small part. I worked as an editor, an animatic editor on the show, but it's based on a fairly well-known worldwide property that's going to be interesting to see how comes across. But what was interesting, what I did learn about what it's like to work for Netflix, is they are really, in terms of creativity, they're a really great company to be. I really want to make something for Netflix. Having now worked on a Netflix show, I've got a property that I've been working on diligently. It's a feature film, but I want to make it, and I would love to make it for Netflix. I love what they do. I love how they're doing business. As long as they can keep their money flowing, we'll see. That's going to be the real tough thing. But you know what? All the executives at studios, man, I think what's really interesting, I think the most interesting thing that's happening is watching what's going on at Warner Brothers. You know, when AT&T swooped in, and you've basically got some lifer studio folks who spent their lives working in the studio industry, the studio movie making industry, that are now like, how do I get over into HBO Max now? I mean, Warner Brothers is soon going to be obsolete. What do I do? So watching that happen is going to be fascinating. If you're not really interested in the movie, that aspect of the movie business, I can understand that, but for me, it's fascinating to watch. So we'll see. But now I have so many letters and so many things to catch up on. So I figured I would, you know what, I'm just gonna start, and I'm going to just start reading, people's letters because there's so many to catch up on. And this is a long one. I'm going to start with William LaRochelle. William LaRochelle, longtime viewer of the channel. Hi, Rob. I'm thinking about a couple of things, perhaps one more practical than the other. Checking the Burnettwork.net, and I guess the short story submission form is not up yet. It'll be up this week. Wondering are we sending PDFs or Word files? I assume PDFs to keep the pages aligned, even though the word count can't precisely be confirmed in PDF. You can send PDF files, but I would much prefer we get Word files because we will be probably doing some editing on the stories, not without your permission, obviously. I've written a couple of possible submissions, leaning more to one than the other over the filmability factor, but I write with regularity anyway. It is an interesting conceit to first expect people who listen to the YouTube channel may also make short films, and a further leap to imagine we will have an O. Henry in our number. Yes, but that's what I do. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It was very interesting of me to just say, let's have a film festival. But you know what? I think it's been bared out. It wasn't a bad idea. And it's still going on. You're going to see more films dropping this weekend. And it is pretty easy for us to binge each other's short films and accept the range of pacing or content. Sometimes a student film screening is more entertaining than the usual Hollywood product, but reading a prose short story is more of a time investment. It will be interesting to see how readers and judges wade through it. A few of us may get cold feet as the guidelines are solidified. I know I have a window for my retention when reading or writing are going to get optimal progress. If I'm tired, I may be able to settle in and watch something passively, but reading or writing require a few more active brain cells. I've been reading Apropos of Nothing by Woody Allen, and it is well written and amusing, but there are no chapter headings, just a few extra spaces now and then. This does not help my strategies around a learning disability that requires me to break things down and anticipate where everything is going. It also makes it harder for people to leap to a scandal. There can be a restlessness from reading, even though I'm coming around to the idea that presenting people with a short story is better than the screenplay. At least if it doesn't get made, it is in some final form. When Kenneth Johnson novelized his unproduced V, The Second Generation, I thought maybe everyone should just novelize their final screenplay drafts, but that process may not be for everybody. The other thing I wanted to mention is the topic of circular arguments. Maybe it is no value to decide or debate the definition of fandom or toxic fandom, for example. We can all make lists of our favorite directors or writers or films or shows or books and debate over which should be included or excluded, or finally argue over the ranking on each list. Some might look at a list as a shortcut to psychoanalyze people. I recall an episode of Nurse Jackie, where the male nurse Thor was advising a doctor on how to do a computer dating form and admonished him for choosing Goodfellas as his favorite film because it had some negative connotation. If I could find the clip, I'd include a link. For me, there is no one fandom or umbrella over it. I agree. There are niches that are either being heard or not. I mean, you'll have some more reach, and Scott Mendelson at Forbes will have more reach defending The Last Jedi than I will as a toxic fan on Facebook trying not to be moderated out of existence. Unless movie makers know there are still people who like a certain style of movie or brand, maybe it will all be taken over by the safe kind of pandering to trends that poses as progress. 4 short years ago, Paul Feig's remake of Ghostbusters was imposed on the marketplace. Live with it, fanboys, was the message. Your iteration is over. Neck-bearded moms, basement-dwelling trolls. And when Jason Reitman's upcoming Ghostbusters Afterlife was announced as restoring the original continuity and iteration, some of us were able to say, live with it. Your iteration's done. Maybe the latter version has a bit less vitriol and demonization and the expectation that 40-somethings live with their parents. I think it matters that people speak up about what they like, and they don't have to agree. Money is being spent. A word like nostalgia is used to belittle a moment like the ending of The Mandalorian Season 2, when in fact it was a fair and powerful storytelling choice that made first-generation Star Wars fans perk up. I got goosebumps when that proximity alert went off and we saw an X-Wing. Then again when Cara Dune said sarcastically, "One X-Wing, we're saved." That pretty much sealed it for me as to who had arrived. maybe there is a time to practice detachment and a time to just say, I will support this or I won't support that. If Hollywood, broadly defined, wanted to know audience demand, it's easier than ever. Cast the right person as Mara Jade, and there could be an Emperor's Hand series popping her into the background of the known scenes, and also a series about the development of her relationship with Luke. But someone would have to be trolling fans if Brie Larson were put into the role, for example. And I admit I am less open these days, considering just how much content there is to wade through. I've seen Star Trek Discovery Season 1, and I'm prepared to take your word on remaining seasons, and Picard. I'm less excited than you about The Acolytes simply because what tips the scales for me is that it is the Headland project that Kennedy slipped through via leak instead of having it properly proposed. And maybe there is no reason an audience member should care about the proper channels of Inner Circle Disney management, but it's enough to make a difference. The Kennedy factions might easily dismiss those of my niche as sexist because The Acolyte was initially only described as a female lead. But that is the big strategy. Make it about the complainer. Then they can be globally ignored. It would be infuriating if this turned out to be a Mara Jade series. I don't think it is. I can celebrate that there will be another season of Dexter and then take Yoda's advice and behave as if the worst has already happened, rather than fear what could go wrong. I mean, I sure hope the new ghost or conscience or hallucination is Deborah, because a profane ghost chastising Dexter as he goes would bring back the dynamic. But I also have to let go of that, make my own crap, and let entertainment sneak up more often. I wonder how many fans of various brands and shows live in an alternating period of suspended animation for the release of something. This past year must have caused a lot of rocking back and forth. I'm a step away from plucking a few quills from the porcupine of pop culture hype machines. Circling back to the first issue I mentioned in this letter, the one bedeviling aspect of composing a short story for submission was the tie-in to the meaning of the imagination connoisseur. If a writer sits down to the blank page and there is a cacophony of YouTube voices and pop culture punditry buzzing inside the brain, I'm not sure anything of interest can be generated. Personally, I have to take a while to clear the mechanism. I might be swimming when something clicks. I might be organizing my apartment and realize I forgot to put an audiobook or music or commentary track on and that I'm just doing some tedious task with only the shreds of my own thoughts for company. My detached view is that Star Wars was great when it needed to be great. If I get a moment like the Grogu-Luke resolution, that's a bonus. But I fully understand people who either can't stop raving about what they like and raging over what they don't. That's customer feedback, whatever name the studio spin machines give it. Hey, Ocean's 8 was entertaining and in continuity. I was supportive of that and would have paid to see it in the cinema if not for word getting out that the Linus scenes were cut as a response for Matt Damon saying something reasonable and proportionate when asked what he thought about the Pound Me Too era. The more we know about something, the easier it can be to put off and not rush to see or buy it. And that might not be such a bad thing. William LaRochelle. Well, William, what a great letter. Thank you for writing in. Great way to start off the year. Again, I think I have some of the most thoughtful people that watch this channel that I can imagine, and don't think I'm not always grateful and thank my lucky stars for the fact that imagination connoisseurs like yourself and like the people that watch this channel are some of the most thoughtful audience members on YouTube. It's something that I'm reminded of every day, especially when I get letters like yours, so thank you for that. For those of you who don't know, we are running, we're basically behind about 2 weeks for the film festival, and I extended the deadline for people. So we're really, we're 2 weeks behind on launching the ideas for the short story competition. So for those of you who don't know, this channel is going to have a short story competition, and anybody can enter. The only rule really is it has to be obviously original. It has to be your work, and it has to be between 5,000 and 10,000 words. Now, the topic at hand is the term imagination connoisseur, and the book that we're going to publish for the work that is picked for the book. And by the way, unlike, we're going to have our own judges here, but unlike the film festival, I'm going to put the best stories that I like and that some of us like here up to be judged publicly by you. So you can choose to read the short stories and weigh in on them. Now, I think that's going to be really interesting. We're going to put them on the website, and they're going to be rotating. We're going to feature them. We're going to feature probably a couple times a week, the ones that I think are truly outstanding. And the idea is that we're going to publish a book, and it's going to be an anthology because I love anthology. It's going to be really nice, probably a slip-cased hardcover book called The Imagination Connoisseurs. Now, what does that mean? Well, I sort of made up the term imagination connoisseur as opposed to being, well, we're all geeks here. No, I'd like to think that we're not just geeks, that we're geeks of wealth and taste. to quote the Rolling Stones, and when I say wealth, I don't necessarily mean material wealth, I mean intellectual wealth. So we are all of us who watch this channel are imagination connoisseurs. And so the book is going to be called The Imagination Connoisseurs because that's all of us who are writing the stories are that. But how does that relate to what they have to be about? Well, I leave that up to you. Your story could define what does it mean to be an imagination connoisseur. Maybe your story is about the time that you realized it you yourself was an imagination connoisseur. Or maybe you wanted to write a great horror short story that would just appeal to imagination connoisseurs such as yourself or other people. I am leaving that totally up to you. The book is called The Imagination Connoisseurs. That's what the anthology is going to be called. And hopefully, if all goes well, it'll be The Imagination Connoisseurs Volume 1. And how it's going to work is all we're asking for is the right to publish your short story. We're not going to own it. We retain no ownership. We're basically asking for a one-time usage fee. All the rights stay with you. And what I would like to do is put the books up for sale, and all of the authors will share equally in a pot. Like, again, I don't anticipate we'll make any money at all. But if we did, all of the authors will share equally. Like, look, you might only make 5 cents. I don't know. But I just want to make it equal for everyone. Obviously, once the expenses of publishing a book, there's not going to be a whole lot left because I imagine with my taste in books, I want it to be some Toshin coffee table book printed on the highest quality paper possible, but that's not going to be what we're going to have. But anyway, it should be fun. Just between 5,000 and 10,000 words, and it has to somehow relate to the idea of an imagination connoisseur. And William LaRochelle's correct. You know what? If you've ever wanted to it's a lot easier to write a short story than it is to make a film. There's a lot less skill set involved in writing than there is to make films. There's a lot more going on. And I think there's a lot of people that are not inclined to make films that are inclined to write. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we come up with. I've been delighted by the film festival entries and all of them. It's just been like, as I said, they've all been interesting. So that's what's happening. And we'll have the actual rules, which are, that's it. 5,000 to 10,000 words, and it has to be original. And we'll be checking. That's the great thing about Google. It has to relate somehow back to the idea of the imagination connoisseurs. We are also going to have a cover design contest, and those are going to begin now on January 15th, and they will end. I think I'm going to extend the competition to April 15th. So it's going to be between because it takes longer to write a short story. So from January 15th to April 15th. And we probably, once again, will have an entry fee only because I think I'm going to have to pay people to read the short stories this time. So the entry fee is going to be the same as the film festival. It's going to be $25. That'll be our entry fee because I can't. It's one thing to watch a movie for 5 minutes, but to read a short story, it takes a while. So, yeah. So that's how that's going to work. That's basically the outline of the short story competition. And what is the cover? If you want to design the cover, it's going to look like that. We'll see what that is like. Because I don't know. I don't know. let's see. We'll see. Now, it wouldn't be another year if I didn't start with a letter from Ian Samuels. Rob, what's next for The Mandalorian? It has not been announced, and we have a long wait for Season 3, now not dropping until 2021. But what are we going to see? Here's my theory. As Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have drawn from what is now known as Legends, I feel much of Season 3 will be focused on regaining of the Mandalorian homeworld and be similar to the plot of a side quest in the Knights of the Old Republic 2 Sith Lords video game. In the game, your character can have as one of their companions the new Mandalore, leader of the Mandalorians, who is in fact the character of Canderous Ordo, the ex-Mandalorian mercenary from the first game. As you travel around the galaxy, you find groups of Mandalorians on various planets now working as mercenaries, and you can try and convince them to follow the new Mandalore. In the series, they could find groups of Mandalorians on different planets similar to the game. And so Din Djarin can try and convince them to follow Bo-Katan and join the fight against the Imperial Remnant to take their homeworld. I feel the armorer from the first season will be a hurdle. Based on her dark red-colored breastplate of her armor and the fact that she has horns on her helmet, suggests that she was previously a follower of Maul when he ruled over Mandalore. So she will be an enemy of Bo-Katan. I don't think we'll see Baby Yoda until either the Season 3 finale or more likely Season 4. There will be a situation where Din Djarin is in dire need of help, and Baby Yoda senses through the Force that Daddy Mando needs his help and goes to his aid. Well, that's my theory. What do you think? And what's yours? I think that's a great theory, Ian. I honestly don't know. I mean, I was thinking more about, I do think that Boba Fett's going to take over the underworld in the Star Wars universe, consolidate his power, but it's going to be hard to say what's going on in The Mandalorian. I think you're right. I think it's going to be something to deal with. They're going to deal with the retaking Mandalore. I think you've got a lot of interesting theories there. It sounds like you're more well-versed in the lore of, say, Knights of the Old Republic 2. I don't know that game that well. I only played the first one. And, I'm in. What you said sounded good to me. So, yeah. So there you go. Emile Johanssen's here. Emile Johanssen says, Rob, freedom of speech is dead, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Let me explain. There used to be a time when a movie came out, and then people criticized it. These people watched a lot of movies and would compare and use harsh words to state their opinion on what they thought as a consumer. Those days are done for. Because in this world there are camps, sources of opinions, tribalism, and if you stray from the path, you are no longer welcome. If you criticize Batman v Superman or you praise The Last Jedi, then you are sorted into a pile of metaphysical garbage. People will comment on your comments, and not in a nice and constructive way. But, I wish you were dead way. If Deadpool did not have regenerative powers, people would have killed him just so he would shut up. Because in this day and age, we no longer wish for a critic's approval. We want our media, not a media. And we want people to be a part of our tribe, not some random kumbaya. Thus, this is the sad reality. You can, in theory, say what you want, but if it's not beneficial for the tribe, be ready for the pitchforks. Well, I'm hoping, Emile, that in 2021 we're going to see less of that, because our tribalism is not helping. It's not helping anyone do anything. Now, look, I am guilty for being, I don't know if it's tribal. I don't think of myself as belonging to a tribe of anything other than the fact that I love good storytelling. And I consider myself somebody who's always learning about good storytelling, but I think I have pretty good taste. And when my taste is lowbrow, I know it's lowbrow. So I'm able to, I can say, I understand what we're talking about here is not good, but I like it anyway, and I can make that distinction. But I think what's happening right now is, like, I understand that people can like what they want. There's some people where things work for them, some people doesn't work for them. But as I've said, and people keep disagreeing with me, I do believe that there is an objective goodness to certain things. I don't believe that everything is subjective for people. I don't. I think people can like whatever they want, and they can feel subjective about it, but that doesn't make whatever they're thinking about better or necessarily worse. I think there's a lot of people that would subjectively say, oh, I don't know, Lawrence of Arabia is boring to them, and they don't like it. But does that mean that Lawrence of Arabia is a boring movie that's not good? See, I don't think that's true. Everybody can, whether somebody likes something or not, that's their business. Everybody has a subjective viewpoint for themselves, and that's fine. That's the way it should be. But that doesn't mean that Lawrence of Arabia is objectively not great. And I think that great art exists, and I've said this many times on the show, that great stories and great art exist outside a bit of people's perceptions. That there are things that are legitimately great, whether you think they're great or not. Now, I'm not the one that's going to say that. Who decides that, Rob? Well, I think it's decided by the staying power and the collective. It's a combination of history and opinion. And I think that if something has proven itself, the stories of Shakespeare, you might not like the stories of Shakespeare. You might not like them. But you cannot deny that over the centuries, stories like Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet and Henry V and whatever have endured. Midsummer Night's Dream. These are stories that have endured through the centuries, and people keep rediscovering them and finding them and going back to them and adapting them because they are objectively great stories. I believe that. Now, your mileage may vary on that. You might not. There's always somebody who comes and, oh, Rob, because the thing is, what you're doing is you're saying that everybody's opinions are valid. I don't think that's true either. There's the more you know about something, the more you can look. It is correct that not everybody needs to. When you sit down and watch a movie, I don't expect people to understand the history of cinema. I don't expect people to understand anything about how a movie's made. All you have to do is sit down in your chair, turn it on. If it either interests you and captures your imagination, or it doesn't. That doesn't make you wrong or right. It just didn't work for you because, yes, your subjective opinion, which, by the way, has been forged through a lifetime of finding things that you do like or don't like, or what it is you know, what you don't know, it's your opinion. And your opinion of what you like and don't like cannot be ever invalidated because it's your opinion. Nobody can come along and say, you're wrong. And I think one of the big problems that we have in our society right now is if I say that I found The Last Jedi intriguing, people will come after me. I thought Luke's story was intriguing from a storytelling standpoint. Did I think it was a good Luke Skywalker story? Did I think it was a good Star Wars story? Not really. It certainly wasn't the story that I was looking for, nor did it make much sense after what I'd seen in the original trilogy. I think that the ill-conceived nature of the sequel trilogy is problematic across the board. But I don't need to be pilloried or attacked for my point of view, and I don't think anybody else. Like, as much as I can't stand Star Trek Discovery, and as much as I think it's a betrayal of the whole franchise, that doesn't mean that I shouldn't ever take away the enjoyment. If someone likes Discovery, and there's a lot of reasons why people do, I'm not going to tell them that they can't like it. I think that Star Trek Discovery is an objectively bad television show. Does it look great? Sure. Are there good actors? Yes. Are they being well utilized? Don't think so. And I think that the actual stories themselves, because after all, what is Star Trek? I think the stories themselves, especially the end of this third season, is monumentally disappointing. Considering some of the great science fiction storytelling on TV has been within Star Trek episodes, it's shocking how lackluster modern Star Trek really is. And that's my opinion. But I also try and base my opinion on, I'm always looking for what do I think is objectively great in a movie, which might be, or a TV show, which might be the wrong way to look at it. But, that's kind of the way I look at it. So anyway, less tribalism and more cogent discourse. That's what I would hope. So we shall see. Kurt A., the Bronze Age Slacker, is here. Hey, Rob, Liz, and the Post-Geek Singularity. So I just finished watching The Queen's Gambit for the second time, a series that I consider to be the best fictional drama of 2020. It's great. And you don't have to just take my word for it. It's been on Netflix's top 10 since it came out in September. That's 4 months. This got me to wondering why this is so. Why is it so good compared to everything else? Well, I think there are a lot of reasons. The acting is great. There's not really a weak link in this category. Anya Taylor-Joy is mesmerizing as Beth Harden, and Marielle Heller as Beth's adoptive mother, Alma, is fabulous. I agree. The other supporting characters also give top-notch performances. The direction, the costumes, the lighting, the props, the sets, and the 1960s CG version of Las Vegas is very hip. But I think the primary reason the series is so good is because the script is so good. As you are often fond of saying, Rob, authorship is key. And remember, it was written and directed by Scott Frank, who also made Netflix's Godless. And it's Tevis's book, but it's Scott Frank brought an auteurist vision. It's truly great. This brings me to Walter Tevis, an author who it pains me to admit that I did not know about until after hearing you mention his name on one of your shows. According to Wikipedia, Walter Tevis was born in 1928 and died in 1984. He developed a heart condition at an early age for which his parents put him into a children's convalescent home where he was given heavy doses of phenobarbital. He would later in life become an alcoholic, which, according to his son, he attributed to his use of the phenobarbital. It seems safe to say that the drug use, the children's home, and his alcoholism were at least partially used as a basis for the character of Beth Harmon, and that's fine. There's an old bit of advice for writers: write what you know. Walter was also apparently a pool player and a gambler, which is likely the basis for The Hustler and its sequel, The Color of Money. I just started reading Mockingbird, his science fiction novel set in the 20th century where people no longer read and robots run everything. Gee, that almost sounds pretty darn prescient. So far, it's excellent. I loved Mockingbird. Can a movie or series be in the future? I would imagine. Who knows, but considering how great his other works are, I wouldn't bet against it. Happy holidays, and continue to stay safe. Bronze Age slacker, Kurt A. P.S. Tevis wrote 2 novels in 1983, The Queen's Gambit and The Steps of the Sun, a sci-fi novel where the Chinese have become the dominant superpower. I'll have to read Steps when I finish Mockingbird, and I guess that might be the basis for a future letter. I have not read Steps of the Sun, but I really should, and now that you've reminded me, I need to get on that. Elaine writes in. Elaine. Hello, Rob and fellow members of the Post-Geek Singularity. In this year of terrible movies, I would like to point out a good movie from 2017. It is a comedy horror film called Mercy Christmas. It's a low-budget movie, but man, I haven't laughed this much in years. Goes to show you that you don't need a huge budget to entertain. This movie was the antidote to the sickly sweet holiday movies that mean nothing unless you're talking about Die Hard or It's a Wonderful Life, both classics in my opinion. This year I have been dejected by Star Trek Discovery, which is soul destroying for a Trekkie such as I. I've been told through media that I am an ist or a phobe because I don't like what's dished out. What I love most about movies and TV shows is that feeling of wonder. I feel that when I watch The Expanse or Battlestar Galactica or the best of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, I feel like the purveyors of culture today have thrown aside the wonder of what if in favor of agenda, and we are all diminished because of this. I love your show, and I think you are a beacon in this crazy world. Thanks, Rob, and my fellow geeks. Well, Elaine, thank you for writing in. I very much appreciate that. Look, I do too. The fact that I keep going back and people said, oh, I took it out of context. No, I watched Damon Lindelof talk about when TV writers get together, they all try and out-woke each other. The thing about it is, I've said this on this show, is that we are on a natural evolution to becoming better people. And look at what's happened with same-sex marriage. I use it as a great example. I think it's a great example. 25 years ago, would anyone have thought same-sex marriage was accepted and became part of the land, the law of the land? It came true. We were moving forward. We were doing okay. And was change happening? Yes. Was it happening fast enough for some people? Probably not. But it was happening. We were evolving. We were becoming better off. And yet I feel we've taken a great step backward with all of this, everyone looking out for, we have to make this world a very safe place for everyone. No one can feel offended, which I think is so weird. Why would you want to inoculate people against the indifference of the universe? One of the things you'll notice when watching the midnight sky is that the universe does not have your best interests at heart. The universe eventually will kill you. And the idea is, and entropy is a bitch. And so, why don't we just spend time enjoying life for its own sake? There's a quote. Let's see. Let me see if I can get this right. See if I can find this quote. This is a great quote. And you know what? If any quote, Stanley Kubrick's one of my heroes, and if any quote exemplified to me my own philosophy of life, it's this quote from Stanley Kubrick, which is, quote, "The most terrifying fact about the universe is not that it is hostile, but that it is indifferent. But if we can come to terms with this indifference, then our existence as a species can have genuine meaning. However vast the darkness, we must supply our own light." That's it, man. That, to me, you want to know what the meaning of life is? That's it, right there. The universe, the fact that we're here at all is an amazing thing to be celebrated. And the fact that our lives, we are born into death. We are born, we are going to die. Some way, shape, or form. We don't know how long we've got. But the meaning of existence to me is twofold. I think that we are here, however you want to believe it, you want to call this spiritual or not, we are here to know and respect and view the universe itself. The universe can't know itself. We're here to know it. We're here to gaze in awe and wonder at the infinitude of the universe. But also, we're the ones, other than the stars, we're the ones because we are able to, we're self-aware. It is us we have to bring. We're the ones that are not just recognize the beauty of the universe, but we're the ones that bring meaning to it all. And the fact is, we don't, as I've said, in the infinitude of the universe, there's only one of each of us, like Dr. McCoy pointed out to James T. Kirk during Balance of Terror. And isn't that amazing? Each one of us, most precious thing in the whole universe. There's only one of each of us, and yet you'd think we would respect each other for that reason alone. Each human being is one of the most precious things that exist in this universe. And yet, we spend our time yelling and screaming at each other about whether or not they like The Last Jedi. It's kind of a bummer. But what are you going to do? But that's what we're supposed to be here for. So anyway, I just want to thank you for writing that in. This one comes from John Sicarelli. I believe Sicarelli. Greetings and felicitation. I was thinking about Felicia from General Hospital. Greetings and felicitations, Rob. Longtime lurker from the early days of Robservations. I have to say, while I love the Robservatory, at times I do miss the laundry room and when you fed your cute dogs their cookies. A lot of people want me to do that. I like feeding dogs, the dogs the cookies. The problem is then they are outside because I'm in the garage, which is a separate structure, and they tend to bark. But I understand. I miss it too. Somebody wanted me to put my camera closer up, which I could do. There's changes afoot. With the release of Wonder Woman 84 and its Linda Carter cameo, it prompted me to revisit her old TV show, as it is now streaming as well on HBO Max. Of course, the show is a major nostalgia trip for me as I viewed it first run as a kid, me too, and now as an adult I can equally cringe at its cheesy elements. It contains a mix of camp inherent in most 1970s genre productions and camp from its basic premise of a 2,000-year-old Amazon in a bathing suit tossing bad guys and never hitting them. I've also rediscovered something interesting I noticed decades ago about what a strange beast the show actually was. While at first glance it comes off as a campy 70s kid show, it also contains moments that are cerebral and well acted and elements of dramatic storytelling that hint at a much more adult show beneath the surface. Take, for example, the Season 1 episodes Judgment from Outer Space, Parts 1 and 2, and guest starring future Buck Rogers cast member Tim O'Connor as Andros, a member of an alien species that came to Earth to judge if humanity should survive or be destroyed because of their destructive tendencies, which means, of course, they're ripping off Day the Earth Stood Still. Of course, Andros arrives during World War II, which is not capturing humanity at its best. The two-parter contains the usual cartoonish Nazis with equally cartoonish German accents and some disco outer space outfits. What it also contains is a dramatic conflict between Diana and Steve Trevor with a Revolutionary War political reference. As an army officer, Trevor wants to arrest Andros as a danger to the U.S., and Diana instead defends him. It climaxes with Diana, in disguise as his military subordinate, calling out Steve for his knee-jerk national security stance with a line from Samuel Johnson. "Patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel." This is a nod to where patriotism is used as an excuse to imprison anyone and deny them their civil liberties. The episode also contains a debate between Wonder Woman and Andros about the best and worst of humanity. Pretty cerebral stuff for an episode where you can easily sneak into a top security Nazi base with the right accent and uniform. Another example is the episode The Man Who Could Move the World. Here, a man who lived in a Japanese internment camp as a child believes that Wonder Woman is responsible for killing his older brother during the war. He develops telekinetic powers and revisits the camp where he lures Wonder Woman to exact revenge. An exploration of Japanese internment during World War II and its lingering emotional scars, and a revenge plot on a kids' show in 1977. Or a plot that feels like it could easily fit into a modern sci-fi show, These Starships Are Coming. Tim O'Connor again guest stars, this time as another character. He plays a general who is duped into almost starting World War III by what can easily be described as an alt-right activist who fakes an alien invasion so the U.S. will launch its nuclear arsenal against supposed alien ships in Russia and China. It's only stopped when the general weighs the morality and the human cost of launching the missiles. Even from a horror movie perspective, the psychic kid and faux ghost plot from the episode Seance of Terror would fit right into a John Carpenter outing. Or the aliens who take over the minds of an entire small town to defeat an alien assassin in The Boy Who Knew Her Secret would fit easily into a Twilight Zone episode. For a show that was developed by the same writing team that also wrote the Adam West Batman series, Wonder Woman has its moments of intentional and unintentional campiness. However, it's laced with seriously acted adult moments and plots. Several of the show's well-acted and adult moments come from Linda Carter herself. Even when she has to play a campy moment or deliver cringy lines, she has an effortless grace that elevates the material. The show's duality is even more interesting when it's compared to Wonder Woman 84. The movie is tonally all over the place, contains intentional and unintentional contrivances, but is laced with characters and moments that appear to come from a much more serious and grounded film. So wondering if the reason for Wonder Woman 84's disjointedness is really just Patty Jenkins trying to recapture the spirit of the TV show. For the TV show, it makes me wonder what sort of more politically nuanced and emotionally satisfying sci-fi we could have had with Linda Carter under a showrunner that went in a more adult direction. For the film series, I can only hope that Jenkins has gotten the nostalgia out of her system and returns to the drama and character work that shined in the first Wonder Woman movie. Seeing Linda Carter on screen made me hopeful that Jenkins can use her in just a cameo role and give Carter material which can show her acting chops. Also, Carter's appearance in the film makes me wish that a producer had the foresight back in the early 80s to greenlight a Christopher Reeve-Linda Carter team-up movie. Imagine a Superman 3 that featured a team-up with Carter's Wonder Woman as opposed to the terrible Richard Pryor version. Oh well, maybe that happened in an alternate universe. Live long and prosper, John. John, well, what a great letter. Thanks for not lurking and writing in. Now I want to see that movie. Superman 3 with Linda Carter as Wonder Woman. That would have been dope. I really would like to have seen that. That is a bummer that we're not. Speaking of Stanley Kubrick, James Wallace is here. James Wallace says, "Hi, Rob. Tail end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021, I'm in a Kubrick obsession mode. I'm in one most of my days, just so you know. It started with a book that was given me as a Christmas gift for Christmas. Stanley Kubrick and Me, 30 years at his side by his driver and former assistant, Emilio D'Alessandro. I started reading the book early morning on Monday, December 28th, and completed reading it by 4 a.m. on Wednesday, December 30th, even though I was around family for 70% of the time. I would go and find any opportunity to escape and read this magnificent book. I need to get it. I don't have it. The reason it's so good? Well, for starters, without spoiling it, you, Rob, would love the beginning. I won't give it away. Another portion of the book that is so awesome is when Emilio tells Kubrick what he thought of his films, and Kubrick's reaction is such a surprise. Through the book, we kind of get to know Emilio, who was a Formula One driver before working for Kubrick. He took the job to support his family, but if you know what happened with another assistant of Kubrick, Leon Vitali, Emilio spent a majority of his life working for Kubrick night and day. It was to the point that he had threatened to quit due to lack of time with his own family. I think he tried 3 or 4 times. I've lost count, but by the time he was 50, he put in a 3-year notice to Kubrick, and even though he retired from working for Kubrick almost 4 years after giving notice, Kubrick still wasn't convinced he was going to quit. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Emilio only saw one film of Kubrick's before working for him, Dr. Strangelove, and he really didn't care for it. Emilio was a fan of Westerns and told Kubrick the moment he would make a Western, he would be in the front of the line. Ironically, Kubrick was kicked off a Western with Brando, but people forget about this. Anyways, it wasn't until Emilio returned to Italy did he realize the impact of Kubrick on world cinema. Italians were in awe of Emilio spending so much time with Kubrick to the point that Emilio finally watched Kubrick's films. Roughly 2 years out of retirement did Emilio go back and work for Kubrick, which would turn out to be Kubrick's last film, Eyes Wide Shut. Now, from a Kubrick film fan, this period is when it gets really interesting because Emilio reflects on aspects of the film people may have been curious about. Plus, you learn that Tom Cruise was really a nice and genuine guy, as was Nicole. Other than that, you realize Kubrick had such a heart by the time he passes away in the pages of this book. I started to cry, even though I didn't know the man, and it's been nearly 22 years since his death. You feel the emotion while reading this book. Part of the heartbreaking aspect of Kubrick's life, or the media portrayal of him, is due to how they manipulated his image of being a perfectionist jerk who is a hermit unless making a film and turned Shelley Duvall crazy. I remember as a teenager buying into this image of the man and at times not wanting to see his films due to the media portrayal, or thinking that Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were nuts to work with a man that was such a tyrant to work for. Books like Emilio's destroy this image that the media set up, and it's due to this that I would love for this book to be adapted. I'm convinced this book could be made into a limited series on Netflix. Would anyone else see that interest? Who knows, but it's truly a remarkable book, and as a result of wanting to learn more, now I'm watching documentaries on Kubrick on YouTube and strongly considered buying the Criterion Collection Blu-ray of Barry Lyndon, even though I already have the Warner Brothers Blu-ray. Get the Criterion Collection Blu-ray. It's great. I'm really interested to buy the Criterion version due to the extra features. We'll see. Anyways, Rob, I know you're a fan of Kubrick and thought I would talk about this book, and so others in the Post-Geek singularity that might be fans can seek out this book and love Kubrick even more by the time you get to the last page. Yeah, it's sort of funny. I mean, Kubrick did have an unprecedented deal with Warner Brothers. The thing about Kubrick that people forget is he worked cheap. I mean, yeah, he was a perfectionist, but it wasn't like, other than like 2001, but when he was making his movies, he could shoot for such a long period of time because he wasn't spending a lot of money. He didn't have gigantic crews. And he had small crews that worked with him and knew what he was all about. But yeah, this media portrayal, I mean, so often it's so easy to portray people. I think Tom Cruise also, I've told the story about the one time I met him, and actually the one time I met him turned into a long conversation between us. And it's apparent to me that that Tom Cruise, and now knowing people who've worked with him, Tom Cruise is a guy that wants to do great work. That's pretty much the raison d'etre of his life, is he wants to do great work, and he gets to work at a certain level. And I think maybe he took something from Kubrick, the level of perfectionism. That's what I think he's brought into the Mission Impossible movies. And a lot of people don't understand that. I think a lot of people don't understand also Scientology and why he got into that, obviously. But I had heard, now I didn't talk to him about this, I think I read somewhere that Tom Cruise had read Dianetics, The Science of Mind, and it helped him deal with his dyslexia. And I think when you're dealing with that kind of, you're reading whatever self-help tome, if it works for you, if you read The Secret and suddenly you just decide things are going to happen and they manifest themselves, you're going to be a disciple of The Secret. And I think he that's what happened. He found he found work, and that's what led him to Scientology, and it worked. I mean, I don't judge anyone based on their beliefs like that, as long as it doesn't interfere with my beliefs or the beliefs of anybody I know. But I think that Kubrick was a man who he was all about the work. And when you're all about the work and you can actually control, like, I think James Cameron is the same way. James Cameron was just wildly more financially successful than Kubrick was. But when you can control these things, why wouldn't you? When you're making a movie, there's so many different disciplines, and Kubrick was interested in everything. I mean, one of the reasons that I've loved Kubrick my whole life and why he's a hero of mine is because even though he wanted to make movies, he was still interested in life. He was not misanthropic. He wanted people. He wanted to do great work, and he became obsessed with his work, and that's where he was at. I'm a huge fan of his. I read so much. I have not read this new book, but I can't get enough like you. So, yes, thank you for writing in for that. This one comes from Daren Seeley. Daren says, "Hello, Rob. Nope, it's not over. During the Post-Geek Singularity New Year's Eve Zoom party, a little debate cropped up. I wasn't expecting it. It was not about Star Wars, Star Trek, or any comic book movie. It was about, of all things, Dirty Dancing. Dirty Dancing. Specifically how people were taken out of the 1987 crowd-pleasing classic due to its inclusion of hit contemporary 80s pop songs. I was puzzled for a moment. What are they talking about? They couldn't possibly mean the 3 original songs in the film. Yeah, that's what they meant. The problem, it seems, is that the movie was set in 1963. Thus, songs from 1987 bring less verisimilitude. I thought it over for a minute, and, well, no, I can't let it pass. Those are fighting words. I'm going to have to say something. I made a point that original songs in a movie that are played for a visual atmosphere and reflect a character's point of view, specifically Patrick Swayze's She's Like the Wind, could be excused for that reason. It sums up to what Johnny Castle may be thinking. If Dirty Dancing were a true musical, the actor would have sung it on camera. Also, the songs aren't hits of the 80s previous to the film. They became hits after the film's release. I wondered if anyone was taken out of 1978's Grease when Olivia Newton-John sang Hopelessly Devoted to You. After all, that was an original song for the film. Guess mine is not the first heartbroken. My eyes are not the first to cry. I'm not the first to know. There's just no getting over you. Ooh, 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 ooh. Hopelessly Devoted to You. That song didn't come from the 50s. But then the subject, sorry, that was bad a cappella singing. I know you're all like going, ah! Sorry to do that. I just struck me. I love the Grease soundtrack. The song did not come from the 50s. But then the subject started to change at the Zoom party just as I was getting started. There's a lot more defending to do. I was hoping it would continue. A film debate amongst the imagination connoisseurs is always welcome, I think. It could be a major point of contention or a minor nitpick. It doesn't matter. A gauntlet has been thrown down, and I must continue. I am far from done. First, I'll give a little leeway here. Hungry Eyes by Eric Carmen is played in a montage, and while I'll conclude a little that the filmmakers could have used another song from the actual era, it never really bothered me. I suppose by that time in the 1980s, I was used to the practice of filmmakers putting in songs, new and old, over scenes where there is no radio present. It's also possible that we didn't know the time in which Frances is sharing her memories with the audience, as the opening narration reflects. Maybe a recent song captures the mood better. Maybe not. It worked for me, though. Hungry Eyes feels the most 80s-like of the 4 original songs in Dirty Dancing, with Mary Clayton's Yes being a close second. Yes isn't a problem, as that song plays out in the opening or the closing credits. And of course, Mary Clayton started her recording career in the early 60s. Now, as for the Oscar-winning song now recycled for tropical vacation resorts, I've Had the Time of My Life isn't a problem, because by the time it shows up in the film, it is the film's climax, where all the storylines are lined up. Johnny gets to do his last dance of the season. A bad kid scandal is brought to light. A man admits when he was wrong and is still proud of his daughter. And baby gets the dance correct. And that moment when she's lifted, come on, folks, a smile went on my face back in 1987 and every year since. Of course, the song is co-sung by Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers fame. So in this reality, the song itself is a new song from the 60s in this context. We know it must be new, as Kellerman asks bandleader Tito if they have sheet music for this song. The song in this context never took me out of the film. I'll go far as to say, by this time, if you are with the film and the characters, this song is great. It just makes you feel good, you know? And what's wrong with that? Lacking verisimilitude? Not here. Too legit to quit. Daren J. Seeley. Ooh, this is a really interesting debate. And kind of like our debate about whether or not you'd sleep with an alien, I think this could be a debate that we're going to continue talking about for a long time to come. So the question here is, do the modern songs that were recorded for Dirty Dancing shatter the period verisimilitude of the film? My answer to that is no. No, they don't. I don't think they do because, first of all, it's not a documentary. It's a movie, you know? And if you have music and songs that are specifically recorded for a film, then they're just as much a part of the film as the cinematography is, the set design, the art direction. They might not even be, say, you're not writing a song period specific to the early 60s, but the movie itself, if the music is original to the movie itself, it doesn't have to be period specific because it's actually being written for the movie. And the movie was not made, it's not a documentary from the 60s. You know, you're still, like Time of My Life. You've got a guy from the Righteous Brothers who could have been period specific, but isn't. I don't think it shatters verisimilitude. I think it's part of the conceit of movie making. Look, if a movie has an original music score, the characters don't hear it. So when there's an emotional moment and you're hearing you're hearing a rising sound that's making you feel emotion, nobody cares about that. So I think original music with lyrics work the same way as a score does. What's the difference? I think absolutely. Daren, I'm with you 100%. I look forward to all these spirited debates in letters in the next couple of months. Prove me wrong, but I am on your side. If music is written specifically for a movie, it does not necessarily have to be period specific, because I'll tell you, I would think you would want it to be thematically specific or fit in to the reality you're creating with the film. Like, I would not want to watch a early 60s movie set at a family camp, resort camp, and then someone puts on some pounding Donna Summer produced by Giorgio Moroder from the late 70s. I don't think that would work at all. You know, but if the music is thematically similar to what you're watching and it fits, I don't think that brings less verisimilitude. I don't. But what do you all say? This is why I love reading your letters, because this is why being a part of this community is so awesome, because we have these kinds of debates. I'm going to jump over to see what you guys are saying in the what's going on over here, because I notice people have been firing in all kinds of questions and things. Let's go to the tote. Oops, sorry, I didn't set this up quite the way I might have wanted to, so I apologize for that. But anyway, so you'll look at that. Oh well, I won't tell anybody if you won't. Let's go back here. I don't even know where we are at. I probably missed some people's chats, so I'm always going to I'll even go further. Let's see. Sujith says, Happy New Year, Rob. Lots of love from India. Well, if you are in Jaipur or around the area, you can watch Tango Shalom. It's 2021 already here. Have a wonderful year ahead, and best of luck with your future endeavors. Well, Sujis, thank you very much. Good to see you here. Samir Durrani says, Happy New Year. I have a fun little question to start off 2021. Who has the worst aim, the Cybermen or Stormtroopers? They're both pretty bad. But you know what? If Ben Kenobi once said that stormtroopers had good aim, I would go with the Cybermen probably have worse aim. Emile Johanssen says, did Marvel have secret, unrevealed plans with Universal that never happened? Since there were so many hints at Namor in Iron Man 2 that never went anywhere, most other references usually go somewhere. I think they were just dropping that. I don't know about that, but I think perhaps maybe we will see Namor, and then you can say that, oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But I don't know the answer to that. Mike F. sends in a tip and says, hi, Rob, have you seen either The Midnight Sky, Mank, The Prom, Hillbilly Elegy, On the Rocks, or The Sound of Metal? Also, are you a member of any guilds? Mike, I am not a member of any guilds. I really like to get into the Producers Guild. I've had opportunities. I'm going to try with Tango Shalom, but I've never been in the WGA. I've been a WGA signatory, but I've never been in the WGA. I saw The Midnight Sky, which I liked. Mank, which I liked, the Prom, and Hillbilly. I haven't seen The Prom. Elizabeth watched The Prom, and I watched Hillbilly Elegy. I've not seen On the Rocks or The Sound of Metal. Also, am I a member of guilds? No, I'm not. So there you go. Willow's here. Willow says, Happy New Year's. What are you most looking forward to or most optimistic about for 2021? Well, to be honest, I really, really want to see, in terms of movies, No Time to Die and Dune. The same movies I wanted to see in 2020 are still my most, and to be honest, I do want to see the Fast saga. I want to see Fast and Furious 9. I know, it's silly, I do. I want to see all the Marvel shows. I want to see all of, the new Mandalorian, the stuff that everybody wants. Stephen King has a new book coming out. I want to read that. There's a lot of physical media, hot toys to buy. It's all the same stuff. Music, movies, TV, action figures, and physical media. Same things I'm always interested in. But those are the most. Those are the most. Classic and Ideas. Wow. Sends in a very generous tip. Hello, Mr. Burnett. Meyer Burnett. Thank you for defending us. A friend of us, Martino, would like to know more about the short story entry format. Other friends of us, Personal Responsibility and Preparedness, also send their regards. Yes, I was talking about the short story competition earlier. First of all, thanks very much for supporting the channel that way. That's very nice of you. So yeah, I mean I hope I've answered your question already, but we're gonna have that up on the 15th, and we're gonna open up entries on the 15th. And then the rules will be posted. Scott K sends in a tip and says, apologies if this has come up before. It's probably hard for any sci-fi fan to narrow this down, but what is your favorite on-screen and off-screen space battle? Wow, that's a good one. You know what? I think I'd have to say that the battle at the end of Return of the Jedi is pretty great. And at the time, there's shots in that battle over the Death Star 2 where all the ships are flying and, the Millennium Falcon, the TIE interceptors. Just because at the time they hadn't, we'd seen space battles like the Battle of the Death Star in A New Hope or Star Wars, but there was something about the mass insanity of that battle in Return of the Jedi that really struck me. That was probably my favorite. Although I do like the Battle of the Mutara Nebula between the Enterprise and the Reliant, just because it was so great. You really felt these were big capital ships slugging it out with one another. But there have been other great battles, like Severed Dreams in Babylon 5. Was it Sacrifice of Angels and Deep Space Nine? There's been some pretty great space battles. And I have to say, I mean, it's animated, but some of the battles in Legends of the Galactic Heroes, even though it's animated, I do love some of that as well. But I don't know about my favorite off-screen space battle. I don't know if I have one that's off-screen because we didn't see it. So I don't know. There's nothing that comes to mind. Scott K, also, if you had a chance to see The Midnight Sky, on Netflix. I didn't care for it too much, but I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on the verisimilitude of it all. I thought that the space stuff was great. The Midnight Sky had some talk about peak verisimilitude. It was really, really, really well done, and the design of that spaceship and how it was flexible, and it really was cutting edge in terms of what they were doing. The stuff in the Arctic, I felt a little differently about that. I mean, you're in the Arctic and you're jumping into the water and you're not freezing to death, and there was a lot of stuff where I'm like, so I had problems there. But overall, I enjoyed it. I mean, I would love to have watched the visual effects on the moon of Jupiter was amazing. I would love to have seen more of that, of the colony. But look, the movie is what it is. I thought it was heartfelt. I did enjoy it. It's a little sterile. I think that it was a little hard to get involved with, but I enjoyed watching it. I did. Is it Newfie Space Plumber 45 became a member? Well, thank you for that. Cardinal Sin said, can't wait for the 7 Faces of Dr. Lau tomorrow. We're going to push that probably by 7 Faces of Dr. Lau is going to be on Tuesday. So Cardinal Sin, we are watching it. Roberto Suarez is here and says, watching my kids consume media, my experience is that when it comes to consuming short content, they look for quick, fun, mindless content that is already provided aplenty by YouTube and TikTok for free. That is a really good point. Content that requires investment in a story is not something they look to take in quick bites. That is a fundamental issue of content consumption. Quibi completely overlooked. I agree. I agree with you, Roberto. I couldn't agree with you more. By the way, thank you again for hosting the Zoom party. That was lots of fun. But yeah, you're 100% right about that. Absolutely, 100%. And it was a point that Quibi did not know. They did not understand. Craig Stratton said, is Amazon Prime a streaming service with the benefits of next-day delivery, or a next-day delivery promise with the benefit of streaming service added on? You know what? I tend to think of Amazon first and foremost as a delivery service, as a retailer, and part of their now retailing is they're selling content, and I'll always think of them that way because I loved Amazon from the beginning. I think I don't know why I was inspired to do this, but one of my most fun moments on Robservations this past year was when, for whatever reason, I went and delved into my Amazon history from the first time I started ordering stuff on Amazon back in 2001, which was kind of crazy. Brandon Plummer says, had a blast at the Zoom party, not going to lie. I was nervous to meet you all, but now I can't wait for the next one in the future of the PGS. Well, Brandon, that's good to hear. Look, I think these Zoom parties are, for the most part, a lot of fun. I mean, I know everybody has to speak up. It's hard because everyone's talking over one another, and but I'm glad you had a blast. I love doing that, and I love seeing everybody get together and hang out, and it's funny to what I love is all the personalities. I love seeing everybody and everybody get together, and I like that we get a sense of who people are, and we got to do more of that. I almost want to do it like once a week. I kind of think that maybe we should do a Zoom party once a week, like on the weekends, like maybe a new thing for season 3. Like we'll either do it, like I could do a regular show, and then we'll do a Zoom party. I mean, I think it's kind of fun to do. It's it's stress-free and like if we had a topic to riff on and to start with, I think that might be a good thing. Like maybe we should do that. It'd be great. Tom Jr. Jackson says, Happy New Year, Rob. Thanks for the past year of awesome content. Can't wait to see what 2021 brings. Had a blast at the Zoom party. Hope to be at the next one. Cheers, good sir. Well, Tom, it was kind of a blast. So we got to do more and more of it. I think that one of the things, it is clear to me that one of the big advantages of this channel is the community. And I think that's what we should be building more of. And I think the more that we can get together, I mean, what I like about, to be honest, for me, what I like about these Zoom parties is I'm just talking to a damn camera. I'm just like talking to all y'all. And I don't see anyone's faces. Does anyone laugh at any of my jokes? Like when I started singing Hopelessly Devoted to You, I want to see people cringe. I think that would be better. I would enjoy that more. So it would be more fun to, and that's what I think the strength of this show is the community that we have. Paranormal Adventure says, are the filmmaker interviews going to be scheduled this coming week to be edited into the January 9th show? It's going to be on the 15th. Well, actually, it's not the 15th, but yes. I'm going to start sending out notices. By the way, filmmakers, you be quiet. Don't say anything because I'm going to interview people. But yes, I am going to start doing that. I've sent out a few already. Jeff, that is very, very, very kind of you, sir. Jeff Yerke, thank you for supporting the channel that way. Hi, Rob. Happy New Year. Mrs. Y and I wish you all the best. I want to put in a good word for Clint Eastwood's 1985 Pale Rider. It's a Western of a different shape, part Mando, part Kurosawa, part John Wick. Amazing. Watch it. Live long and prosper. The Yerkman. I love Pale Rider. I saw Pale Rider when it came out. You know, it's kind of like it's not part of the Man with No Name thing, but it's still got that vibe. I'm a big fan of those things. I mean, I'm a big fan of all the Clint Eastwood Westerns. Unforgiven is one of my favorite movies ever. And I did like Pale Rider, although, you know, it's funny, I haven't seen Pale Rider in a long time. I saw it opening weekend, and I need to revisit that. I got to go back and get that. Whenever I watch Clint Eastwood Westerns like The Outlaw Josie Wales, not the Man with No Name trilogy, which are always great, but when I go back and watch the other Westerns, I'm like, wow, this is really good. I should go check it out. Definitely something I need to get. Evan Newman is here and sends in a tip and says, I agree on The Midnight Sky. It was quite an enjoyable film, especially for a Netflix release. Does it all work out when you think back after the ending? No, but it's a fine movie nonetheless, and it is an oasis in the new release desert we're currently in. Look, getting movies that I do want to see Greenland. And there's been a lot of stuff. I have to tell you, Mo Rainey's Black Bottom, I know it's based on an August Wilson play, but by God, I wish I could have seen that in the theater. I would love to have seen that big on a big screen. But Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, whoa, what a movie that is. What a ferocious performance by Viola Davis and everybody. The acting is so good in that film. So that's something else. I mean, again, Netflix putting these films out. Gotta love it. Brandon Sheehy sends in a tip and says, Rob, I watched Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor, and I'm unconvinced of his talent. He seems to want to outdo his dad in terms of violence and weirdness, but he lacks his dad's deft touch when it comes to social commentary and intriguing and memorable storytelling. Brendan, did I say Brandon? I always say Brandon, don't I? It's Brendan. Brendan, I don't disagree with you. I would call myself a Cronenberg acolyte. I'm a huge fan of, especially, like, I really got into Cronenberg in my younger days. I mean, to me, he was a punk rock filmmaker. His body horror stuff, They Came From Within, Rabid, The Brood, Scanners, Videodrome, all of those films I dearly loved. I mean, I've loved most of his movies, but the thing about his films was they were, I mean, he would take these outlandish ideas, and he had a philosophy, and I think his ongoing philosophy that I think Brandon Cronenberg is missing, like, is his ongoing philosophy that was a part of all of these early body horror films. The Fly, I think, The Fly and Videodrome, but The Fly might be the most populist of all of his ideas or his films, but in terms of body horror, the idea that we are beings of spirit and of intellect, and that our bodies, our physical meat sacks, can revolt against us at any time. And obviously mortality and disease like cancer plays into that, but he would always find really interesting ways to do that and deal with those things, and how our minds and our bodies could be pushed apart or thrown out of balance. I mean, that was a big part of what he concerned himself with. And I think with Possessor, it was an interesting idea, but it doesn't have the underlying philosophical, it doesn't have the philosophical underpinnings of his father's movies. So I agree. And, you know, while I like seeing the extreme violence and all that of Possessor. It was fun, but I kind of felt like, okay, you're doing this for shock value. But what I was more interested in was the intellectual nature of the story that you're talking about. but ultimately it's like body swapping, or it never intrigued me as much as any of the premises in his father's movies. And his first movie, Antiviral, I thought it was interesting. Like you would buy cloned meat from somebody, or you could get someone's disease. Like if Britney Spears had a cold and you wanted to be closer to her, you were able to go get that cold she had, and you're like, I have Britney Spears cold. I mean, that was a weird idea, but I don't know if it was necessarily great or followed through on. Stubble McShave says, people's interest in Thrawn has very little to do with Rebels. The new books are probably not the source for people's interest in him either. He's mainly interesting for us because of Zahn's trilogy in the 90s, and that's not the version we're getting. I agree with that. I would like to see the character of Thrawn, Grand Admiral Thrawn, depicted more like he was depicted in Timothy Zahn's original trilogy. But I think you're absolutely right about that. Ross Gecko sends in a super chat and says, hi, Bob. Or hi, Rob. Just stopping by to say Happy New Year. Thanks for all the great streams in 2020. I greatly look forward to your next film and all of your 2021 streams. Well, thank you. Ross, I very much appreciate that. The Richard, everyone, I don't know, people become members, and I don't know if it's old or they throw these out, but the Richard became a member. Call Me Ishmael became a member of the channel. Darth Plato became a member. Brian Borden, G Money Money, Nerdy by Nature, Kinky Sphincter, Jack Wallace. I think you guys already were members, but you all became members, so thank you. Angry Trekkie sent in a super chat and says, hi, Rob. If I tick the box on your letter application website for contact me further to discuss, that means you won't or you will. Oh, I would. Absolutely. Angry Trekkie says, have you seen the film with Tony Curtis and Marilyn Monroe called Some Like It Hot? Damn, Marilyn was hot. Yes, I own Some Like It Hot. But it's Jack. It's a great film. You can't not love that. So yes, I own it, but I want to say, hang on a second. There's Billy Wilder made it. I'm a huge Billy Wilder fan, obviously, but it's look, Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis, they're. It's just one of the funniest movies ever made. I think it's one of the funniest movies ever made. But there's George Raft. George Raft. That's what I was thinking of. George Raft. I love George Raft in it as Spats Columbo. That's what I was thinking. I love George Raft. Well, I don't know why I couldn't think of his name. But yes, you are correct. It's a great movie, and Marilyn Monroe was hot, hot, hot. Stub McShave says, my resolutions for 2021 that I mentioned on the Zoom party, I will try and celebrate more great things and bitch less on bad things. I'll start to write the novel that's been bouncing around in my head for some time. Yeah, you should. Absolutely, you should. And that's amazing. Anonymous asks if I saw the New Year Doctor Who special. I have not. I need to. I hope it's good. I usually like the Doctor Who Christmas specials. Attic Hatch Sound says, when is the McBain Twitch Amazon watch party? Also, Darktown Strutters. Yes, Darktown. We got to get to Darktown Strutters. So I have found out, I don't know if anyone's interested in this. I was talking with some people on a different stream that on Twitch, you can link up with Amazon and actually have watch parties where you can kind of like Mystery Science Theater 3000 Twitch streams. And I was thinking about doing that, like a special curated film series where we would sit down and I would have people come, link to Amazon, and pick some of my favorite exploitation movies. McBain was directed by James Glickenhaus, who's a favorite of mine. A big fan of James Glickenhaus. McBain, one of his most magnum opuses. I don't know if people would be into that, but I think it'd be kind of funny if I did a curated exploitation film series of stuff that I like that we could talk about and watch. But we should do that soon. Comics are fun. Sticksboy73 sends in a super chat and says, I'm watching Dr. Lau on Laserdisc. Hashtag long live Laserdisc. Yes. I still have my Laserdiscs. I've still got them. I still have them right here as I tend to show people. So yes, there you go. Dr. Lau, we are doing the 7 Faces of Dr. Lau on Whining About Movies on Tuesday. So there you go. Mike F. has written a letter. Let me go over here. Mike F. writes in, and Mike F. says, "Hi, Rob and the Post-Geek Singularity. First of all, I want to say that I enjoyed your episode of Fully Articulated with Justin Kane and Az. It was fun watching it all throughout. I'm not a Hot Toys collector since I'm more of a Funko Pop collector, but I still relate to you guys. I mean, whenever Funko releases a new figure of a character I love, I always say, oh, I gotta have that. And then I click add to the cart, my bank account drains. But I'm looking forward to more of your toy discussions because I'm just enjoying it. Anyway, in this letter, I'm discussing the Netflix comedy special Death to 2020, which you also tweeted and said that it was hilarious. I thought it was funny. I didn't realize that a lot of people don't. I agree with you on that, Rob. I'm actually surprised when the reviews came in and it wasn't as positive as I thought it was. I watched the special hours after it was released and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a hilarious mockumentary that really did a clever job on doing commentary about how shitty 2020 was, and as they recall all the major events around the world. Also, they didn't take sides. I was laughing throughout. I also love the ensemble they assembled. Sam Jackson was great as the New Yorkerly news reporter, especially when he discussed Black Lives Matter. I thought that was great too. Hugh Grant was funny as the historian who would mistake events of Game of Thrones and Return of the Jedi as part of history. Lisa Kudrow nailed the parody of a conservative spokesperson, and Tracy Ullman as Queen Elizabeth was the chef's kiss. Kristen Milotti was hilarious as a soccer mom who's basically the embodiment of a Karen, but the one who stole the show for me is Diane Morgan, who played average citizen Gemma. I thought she has the funniest talking heads. She's the one who made the comment about Quibi, which killed me. I just love the ensemble here. Every single one of them was great. Anyway, thank you for reading this letter. I'm just glad that you also enjoyed Death to 2020. I thought Charlie Brooker nailed it, and I love their bit at the end when they were kind of predicting the events of 2021. Stay safe and live long and prosper. Well, Mike, thanks for writing in. Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, when I tweeted that I liked it, people were like, it sucked. I mean, was it kind of lowbrow? Yeah. But I still thought it was funny. I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, I can't say that it was, high art or anything. This one comes in from Jamie. Jamie says, "Hi, Rob. Listening to your episode, you told a story about a book being taken off of you at school. When I was in year 5, which I think is grade 4 in America, I started reading The Wolf of Wall Street." That means you were like 10. I love it. However, it was at this time I would be taken out of class every week to read to my teacher. I opened my book and started reading out loud. If you've read a book or watched the film, you'll remember the bit where Jordan finds out about his butler having a massive gay orgy in his house. Well, unfortunately for me, that was the little bit I read that day. Well, 2 hours later, after being shouted at for having an inappropriate book in school, I was suspended for the rest of the week for me to think over what I'd done. Even though I thought I was completely mature enough to read about this in a book. My parents were also fine with it, even going as far as to giving me the book to read. I still to this day do not understand what was going through the heads of my school teachers. Well, let me tell you, Jamie, I'm with you. I read stuff that was wholly inappropriate, and I have to tell you, reading books with all kinds of sexuality in them made me appreciate human sexuality. I was like, that's really interesting. I think the more you can be exposed to things at an earlier age, the less prejudicial you'll be against them because they're usually presented in more of a matter-of-fact context. And then you kind of, come to grips with these things earlier. And I think a lot of that has to do with, let me thank certain horror novelists like James Herbert and Graham Masterton, 2 British men whose work I consumed, more than I probably should have. And they had all kinds of crazy sex in their books. And then, of course, Clive Barker, but I came to him when I was a little later, older. But that's very funny. I can't believe you had The Wolf of Wall Street taken off of you when you were like 10. I was reading stuff that was, it was bad. But you and I, we can commiserate that. So there you go. Man, I would love to have seen a video of you reading that part out loud to your teacher. This one comes from Omar94. Hi, Rob, moderators and the Post-Geek Singularity. Hopefully, this letter will be read before New Year's, although I guess it can work after New Year as well. 2020 has finally come to an end, which I admit I was a bit surprised at. I think each year feels long, but I felt like 2020 was going on forever, for some reason. I know a lot of bad things have happened, like the pandemic, racial tensions, riots, and other things, but a lot of good things have happened as well. You expanded your brand, Rob. You successfully created 3 new shows alongside Robservations, whining about movies with Elizabeth, Let's Get Physical Media with Dieter, and Fully Articulated with Az. You also helped bring fans of entertainment together, now known as the Post-Geek Singularity. I've been a fan of yours since either AMC or Collider, I can't recall, but did not join the live chat and send letters until 2020, as you started your channel back in 2018. That is something I regret, as I wished I'd joined sooner. In the time I joined the chat and sent letters, I've come to know and be very fond of you, your moderators, and the Post-Geek Singularity. We'll write back at you, sir, and we very much appreciate all the writing you have done into the channel. I think of us all as friends, or pen pals per se, since we pretty much write to one another on a regular basis, and have come to know much about each other outside of our affinity for entertainment like movies, TV shows, and etc. I agree with that. I think you're absolutely right about that. I want to give a congrats to every one of us for making it through another year, and I want to give a shout out to certain members of the Post-Geek Singularity as I have become aware of some impressive things they've done. Congrats to Dieter Bastian for co-hosting the new show Let's Get Physical Media. Congrats to writer B.L. Alley for his Aerosil books. Congrats to Willow Yang for completing all of her education this semester. Congrats to all of those who became moderators. If I forget your name, I apologize, since there's a lot of you now, like Mike Bodden. I'm not sure, since I know he's your business partner, Rob. Bunyan Snipe, Purple Valkyrie, Joshua Levesque, Robert Pariso, Justin Toner, Haynock, MC Blackcap, Greg Smith, and maybe Jordy Lyons. I can't recall at the moment. He wants to come back. I also want to give a shout out to those who don't really appear in the chat very often anymore, but I still consider them part of the Post-Geek Singularity, and I hope that they join the chat soon because they're missed. Jeremy Shibasu, Vesna Lukic, and Paula Boyers. I always say Boyers because it's 2 L's, but Paula Bowlers. I know things got a little tough halfway through the year, Rob, as I know you had to deal with a lot of crap from people. Rough times can happen, but the Post-Geek Singularity stuck together the best we could, and we're still here as we stuck it out and got through it. To wrap it up, we all made it to the end of 2020, and let's hope 2021 will be better. I mean, I can't imagine it being worse, but knowing my luck, I might have just jinxed it. Thanks, and live long and prosper. Well, you know what's great about the next year is we don't have a choice. It's a lifestyle choice. We can make the year better or not better. I choose to make it better. As a matter of fact, having a little Belgian ale. Yeah, I'm gonna drink less, eat better, lose some weight, get in shape, do more work. I think that's what I'll do. That feels like the best thing to do, I guess. Let's see. This letter comes from Jason Webster. Jason says, "Hi, Robert. Well, we've come to just about the end of an eventful and crazy 2020. I've never been through a year like this one, and I hope we never go through such a year like this again. To say everyone wanted this year to end quickly is the understatement of the last 2 decades. Still, I remain positive for the years ahead. Anyone who knows me will say I love numerous films by Japanese director Takashi Miike. I love Takashi Miike too, if I can pronounce his name. This letter will address my favorite films by the director simply known as the Asian Quentin Tarantino. Over Your Dead Body is my second favorite J-horror film alongside Hideo Nakata's Ringu. The story of the film centers around Miyuki Goto, who has landed the lead role of an Oa in a new theater adaptation of the popular folk legend Kaidan. She gets her lover, Kisoki Hasegawa, the male lead in the production, despite the fact that he's a relative unknown as an actor. Miyuki is the object of unreciprocated lust from a male co-stars, Ryo Ashina and Jun Suzuki. Kasuki begins an affair with Miyuki's understudy. As Miyuki's desperate obsession to keep Kasuki and his obsession for her understudy develop, it begins to blur the line between fantasy and reality, which may have deadly consequences. Over Your Dead Body is a slow-burn horror film that simmers, building the tension that crescendos to a memorable climax. Miike utilizes every directorial technique to produce a film that is effective in its pacing, rich cinematography, atmospheric use of lighting and shadow, and superb production design. The film features terrific performances by ever-reliable lead Ko Shibasaki. Over Your Dead Body was a welcome return to form by master director Takashi Miike and is certainly one of the best films and one of the best of the J-horror genre. I highly recommend it for fans of both Miike and the J-horror genre. By the way, one of my favorite films that people don't talk about anymore that I love is Fudo. If you haven't seen Fudo, watch Fudo. First Love is an enjoyable action crime thriller. I got to get that. That's one of his latest movies, and I haven't seen it. Is an enjoyable action crime thriller from the legendary director. The acting is good, and the film rolls along at a solid pace. The film centers around a boxer named Leo who is caught in the middle of a war between local Yakuza and Chinese triad gangs when he saves a drug-addicted prostitute named Yuri. First Love is quirky with touches of the macabre and slapstick humor, making it pleasantly entertaining. It is in keeping with Miike's ability to provide style, flair, and his own unique brand of tongue-in-cheek and often macabre sense of humor, although not as dialed up and edgier as his earlier work. However, those elements recognizable to Miike fans are there. The genuine heart of the story is that of two broken people who find each other amid the chaos. The film received positive reviews from the Austin Chronicle, Film Comment, and the Los Angeles Times. 13 Assassins is a I can never pronounce these words, and Chanbara film released in 2010 that proved Miike is as much a deft hand at this genre as he is in J-horror and crime thrillers. The narrative focuses on a group of assassins selected by decorated veteran samurai Shimada Shinzaemon, who has been given the task to assassinate sadistic daimyo of the Akashi domain Matsudara Narasugo. Terrific editing, great costumes, superb performances earned 13 Assassins a place amongst the best of the Chanbara subgenre. Many critics called the film a masterpiece, and Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave a glowing review of the film, writing, "Terrifically entertaining and ambitious big-budget epic directed with great visuals and sound." As for myself, it is one of my favorites alongside Akira Kurosawa's masterpiece Ran, Yoji Yamada's Twilight Samurai, which is so good, and Furuhori's Ichi. 13 Assassins, I'm getting all these names wrong, won 4 Japanese Academy Prizes and the Asian Film Award for Best Production Design. I like Blade of the Immortal, which is a live-action adaptation of the Hiroaki Samura's very successful manga title of the same name. The film tells the story of an immortal samurai named Manji, who becomes the bodyguard of a girl named Rin Asano to avenge the death of her father, who is the leader of a band of assassins, by Kagasa Anatsu, who is a leader of a band of assassins. Manji and Rin receive assistance from Maki Otono Tachibana, it's hard to say these, a loyal follower who defects to Manji as she has become disgruntled. The film featured good performances, skillfully choreographed fight scenes, and terrific costumes. The film received positive reviews from critics, with The Guardian, The Hollywood Reporter, and Variety all praising the characterization and the kinetic fight sequences. One Missed Call is a J-horror film directed by Miike at the height of the genre's international popularity. The story begins with Yoko Okazaki, who receives an obscure text call from herself on her mobile. She and her friend Yumi Nakamura listen to Yoko's voice message dated 2 days in the future that ends in a horrendous scream. 2 days later, Yoko is thrown violently from an overpass and killed when she hits an oncoming train. Some of her friends receive similar calls, ending in their deaths. All victims of the curse share one thing in common. They all spit out red jawbreaker candy upon death. When Yumi receives a similar call, she receives assistance from Detective Hiroshi Yamashita, and their investigation discovers the calls are linked to a malevolent female spirit. Will Yumi free herself of the curse, or is she doomed to be its latest victim? Even though One Missed Call firmly contains the tropes and conventions associated with the J-horror genre, I like the film due to the skillful direction of Takashi Miike, who uses juxtaposition, black humor, and macabre violence to craft a reasonably paced film that features atmospheric cinematography by Hideo Yamamoto and a reliable performance from female lead Ko Shibasaki. The film is one of the better entries within the J-horror genre and works as a solid entertainment, providing sufficient scares and atmosphere for fans of the genre and worth viewing. So there are films I consider to be my favorites of those directed by Takashi Miike. To yourself, Robert, and all the members of the Post-Geek Singularity, have a happy and safe New Year's, and may everyone's wishes, hopes, and goals for 2021 come to fruition. Thanks, Jason Webster. Well, thank you for that. Sorry I get so tongue-tied on these words. It's hard for me to say them. But there you go. And now, let's see. I think, where are we at here? I think it's time to end this show. I'm going to bring an end to this show. Anonymous, by the way, says, isn't it more classification and not censorship that is stopping schools having certain books? Like movies, some books are surely just not suitable for younger viewers or younger readers, and it's better for them to read them when they're more mature. Is it? I've maybe, but I don't think that we're talking about. I have to say, I had, when I was reading books when I was younger, and of course this isn't obviously for everyone, but when I was reading wholly inappropriate dark fantasy and horror novels that had all kinds of horrible sex and, well, not horrible, great, awesome, explicit sex and horrible violence, I was probably too young to be reading these things. However, I had sort of a personal relationship with this material. Nobody knew I was reading it. You know, I was buying these books and collecting them, and in a way, this is human behavior. When you're born into this world, and you're born into our world where you're going to die, I feel that maybe preventing people from being exposed to certain things. I mean, I don't think that kids should be watching hardcore pornography or something like that because you're not equipped to know. But I also think that there is not any one time where it's a rite of passage like, oh, you're 16 now, so now I can go back and read Clive Barker's The Books of Blood. I don't feel that way. I think everybody develops, every single individual has sort of a unique place, and that's why I think parenting comes in. You know, I think parents should be more mindful of, what are you reading? What are you watching? You know, and I think we need more of that. I think that banning books like the Odyssey and the Iliad, which, by the way, were written at a very different time in human history, and they have to be taught as such. This idea that we want to protect people and children from difficult concepts is, I think it does more harm than good. I think nowadays, you know, this idea that, oh, I have to be protected from these ideas that are bad or toxic or wrong, is really infantilizing our culture. On one hand, everybody's cooler or hipper than thou because we're so knowing and we're so memed out. We know these things, but do we really? There's other ways of being and other things about human life that we're not so up on. And I think the more people can be exposed to these concepts or concepts that are a little beyond them, I think it's always helpful. But that's, look, is it better to read things when people are more mature? Sure. But I think the more ideas that you start to come to grips with, like I talked about on the show, I resented the fact that I didn't know when I was 8 or 9 years old that my grandmother was dying of cancer and my parents wanted me to be protected from that knowledge. I wish I had known in hindsight, and I wish I had gone to her funeral because my parents, again, were trying to protect me, but it kept me from having real closure. And I think that was wrong. You know, I think that kids need to not necessarily be protected. What they need is guidance. You know, kids need parents to take them and pay attention to them and take them on a journey rather than just expect these things to happen, you know? And I think in a way, my parents sort of, when my dad and mom would take me to movies and things like that, it was their way of participating in the things that I was interested in. And I respected that. I liked that about them. And I think that, you know, rather than just give these blankets, nope, you can't have that, nope, you can't learn that, it would be better if parents, well, took their children on a journey, or maybe together they learn these things. And if there was problematic material that they were going to cover, if they could see it together, maybe parents and kids would have better relationships, and then parents would be able to instill in their kids more of the ability to learn about the world. Samurai, I see what you did there. Kurosawa's non-samurai movies are great. Stray Dogs, Akiru, Redbeard, and High and Low. I'm a huge fan of Kurosawa's non-samurai films. High and Low is just it's a crime thriller. Akiru is so heartbreaking, And Stray Dogs is cool too. And Dersu Zala. All great movies. Stubble McShave says Mad Max took place in 2021. Just saying. Yeah, we're right about there, Stubble. Well, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, members of this Post-Geek Singularity community, I want to thank you for bringing me more good cheer in this coming year, the new year of 2021. Thank you for being here. I'll be here every day. I'll be here tomorrow. I'll be back on the John Campea show. It's going to be a good year, I think. It's going to be interesting to see where we're at, but we will continue to celebrate all things Imagination Connoisseur, and we're going to have short story contests and who knows what else. So there you go. And I want to thank my moderators for being here. I want to thank MC Blackcap, Joshua Levesque. I want to thank The Richard, Justin Toner, for all of you guys and girls being here. I want to thank Mike Bodden. And, of course, please head on over to the Post-Geek Singularity Facebook page, the Whining About Movies Facebook page, and now the Fully Articulated Facebook page, and sign up, sign in, and we're going to have a lot of cool stuff happening on the channel. A lot of cool stuff. It's going to be fun. And I like the idea of doing more Zoom parties and things like that. That'll be a lot of fun. So on that note, and I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel generously via super chats or tips, all these things. Thank you so much. And also writing letters. The lifeblood is hearing from you, the lifeblood of this channel. So thanks very much. And remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to all of you, have a better day.